The next choice available to the user is to add new flight to the schedule. So let's locate this method inside the schedule implementation, add flight. Okay, and so here it is. This is the method. It's a longer method, so let's take a close look what it does. So the first thing that happens, we just print the prompt to the user that we're now in the middle of this use case, add new flight. And the first thing that we do, we ask for the airline code. So here's my output window, and if I go back to the menu and make this choice number 4 to add new flight, let's go back to Iceland Air. Okay, so this is Iceland Air, and if the airline code is not present in the list of existing airlines, we already saw this check before, we're printing that this code is not valid, so they have to re-enter the code. And my way of error handling right now in many of these methods, that I just display the error message and return back to the menu. And of course, in realistic application, there could be maybe different versions of it that we can just let them continue in the middle of this set of entries. The flight number is simply just a numeric value. Okay, so this stands for airline code IA, and flight number is 70, something like this. I just pick any number right here, and you hit enter, and it's asking us for the departure day. So let's say that the departure here will be a Monday. Okay, so I enter M for Monday, and departure time in military notation. Let's say that it departs at 23:00, so this is 11 p.m. Okay, so the flight departs at 11 p.m. And departure airport, we can say it's Boston. So BOS is the international airport encoding for Boston Airport. And let's say the departure gate is A12. Okay, and so the arrival day can be the next day, Tuesday, and the arrival time will say just like maybe 4 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so the flight is taking 5 hours, and remember our time zones are ignored, so basically we just stay in the universal time zone, which does not have time zone changes. So here we enter this, and arrival airport is Reykjavik. Okay, RKV, something like this. And the arrival gate, let's make it D32, something like that. Okay, so this is all done, and now we should have this flight on record. So we can probably this time go to show flight information, number 6, and we begin with airline code, and for the flight information, all flights that are scheduled for this airline are simply displayed right here. So we have our flight, we have the departure information, we have the arrival information. You can see that there's some formatting. It's not perfect, but it displays what's the departure gate and what's the departure time, and the date of arrival, the day of arrival, and then we have the time. So all this information is just displayed in some order right here. Okay, and so let's go back to add flight, and we have observed all these questions. So what happens is that number 1, we just ask the user for airline code, and we quickly validate it against already existing airlines. So it should not be duplicate code. Then we say, okay, let's get the airline for this airline code. So get airline is a method right here that we have. Let's find out what it does. So it basically is going to loop through the a collection of airlines, and if the code is on file, then we return a reference to the airline object. So, of course, remember that a flight is designed in such a way that the airline object should already be on file. So when we add the new flight, the corresponding airline has to already exist. That's a business rule. You cannot add flight for non-existing airline. So that's why once we validate it for the existence of airline, we just go straight to say get airline and retrieve the reference to the airline object with the specific code. So now we have the airline, and we know that we have this object. Then we begin to ask for the flight number, and we get it as an integer. So then once the user passed this entry, get integer, we create new flight. Okay, so we create new flight object. And the flight object constructor is taking airline and flight number as parameters, right? So this is when we print information about flights. This is where it's coming from, right? It's the airline code, and flight number is captured inside the flight. Now, of course, we also should be checking whether this flight is already on file. So if this is already an existing flight, again, we should reject this flight and prompt the user. So in case of this application, we print message that the flight number is already on file. And again, we kind of interrupt the process of entering the new flight. But again, this could be done differently so that we can just let them re-enter and continue. So if this flight that we created with this airline string and the flight number value, if this flight is all right, it doesn't exist yet, we just add it to the flight map. And flight map is a flight map is a hash map object, which we will discuss in our next presentation. For now, we just say that what we're going to do with it, we're just going to use a put method. There is a put method that gets the flight number, which is the code for the string, which is a combination of airline code and the flight number, just a string, and we add the flight object to this map. So the map requires two things. Basically, this will be a string which corresponds to the flight number together with airline code, and the reference to the flight object that we just created. And then we interrogate for the rest of the information. So we essentially ask the user now to provide departure day, and this is captured as the first character, the character 0 at position 0. We're just using getString, which returns back a string, but we know that getString guarantees that the user has to enter a non-empty string, so we know that one character there exists, and we just retrieve this character by using character @ from the string that returned by the validator, and this is how we capture this character, day of the week. The next challenge is to get the departure time, and again, the range of values are from 0 to 2359. Okay, so that's an integer that we're supposed to get in this range, so we validate that we don't overstep these boundaries. Then we ask for the airport code for the departure, right? And we also ask for the departure gate. And once this information is available, day of the week, time of the departure, airport, and gate, we construct new object, departure arrival information, and it stores day of the week, the time, the airport code, and the gate. And there we just go back to the flight and we set departure information to be this, okay, to be this new departure arrival information for the departure part. Then we pretty much repeat all of this again for the arrival information. So this is still part of our adding flight. So we're making progress through these stages of adding new flight. And once the departure information is also available, I'm sorry, the departure information is right at the top. This is the arrival information. So once the arrival information is here, we set the arrival info inside of our flight class. So the flight class has a number of attributes. First of all, it implements comparable interface so that instances of flight objects can be compared and sorted. Internally, we store the airline, the number of the flight, the combined flight number, which is basically the airline code and the flight number together. And we have these two objects, departure, arrival info. So this is for the departure and this is for the arrival, but the data attributes are both the same data attributes. All right, so that is here. We have our comparisons implemented right here. And then the setting of the departure and setting of the arrival right here. When we say set departure and set arrival, it's pretty simple. We just pass the departure arrival information reference and it gets remembered inside this object. So basically these two methods, set arrival and departure info, are simply setting these instances of the new departure arrival info here and here. Okay, so as a result, we just completed creation of the flight object. We capture reference to the airline object inside the flight, and we also create two new departure arrival info objects that are described by departure arrival info class, and we set them as these two references accordingly. So this is the creation of the flight. So this is an example of how we create the new flight and add it to the list of our flights.